Well, it's as simple as this. The Board of Aldermen there in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, supports the state flag of Mississippi. The Klan supports the state flag of Mississippi. Therefore, the Board of Aldermen supports the same policy as the Klan. So, one has to ask, are they part of the Klan? Ladies and gentlemen, before this show is over, I'm going to prove to you irrefutably that the current banner of the state flag of Mississippi was in fact the relic and originated by the Ku Klux Klan. See, some of you guys don't really take the time to read the history as do I. Certainly not those who are on the Board of Aldermen or Shea, whatever his name is, the mayor. It really teased me off too. If you're going to say you're proud of your heritage, at least know what the hell you're talking about. I know more about your history than you do. It's amazing how I see some of these rednecks who come up with this, well, it's not about slavery. And then you ask him, well, who was the vice president of the Confederacy? Nathan Bedford Forrest? I mean, I'm just, you guys, you do yourselves a disservice by somehow or another coming up with some kind of revisionist version of what happened back then. And when all you got to do is read the documents, it's right there in front of you. Just read Jeff Davis' book, The Rise and Fall of the Confederacy. You got it right here on my counter. I got the deluxe version too, by the way. So there was a lawsuit filed there in Ocean Springs, and up until recently, ladies and gentlemen, Ocean Springs is one of my favorite places here on the coast. And it's just sad what has happened now since the election of the current mayor. It's just really sad. It was a nice little sleepy, artistic town. You can walk through it without fear. And now the Yahoos seemingly have taken over. This is a complaint right here. U.S. District Court. By the way, let me just tell you, I wish you well in this complaint, but it's groundless. Even Carlos Moore and the coalition need to do just a little bit more homework when you're going to put something forward. I also will be considered as frivolous lawsuit. And you don't want to go through that. One of the first lawsuits filed, as it applies to that banner, was filed by yours truly. It was concerning 8 flags downtown, or down on the coast. And I know exactly, ladies and gentlemen, what went wrong, let's put it that way. But first, the irrefutable evidence. The current banner that represents Mississippi, and of course now flying over the City Hall in Ocean Springs, first time in some 14 years or so. That current banner came up and was originated in 1894. All you got to do is thumb through Earl Johnson's book, Mississippi, the Infamous Years, 1875 to 1965. By the way, Earl Johnson was the last president of the Sovereignty Commission. He spells out emphatically what transpired. This is after the Civil War. After the U.S. colored troops were sent out, there was martial law. After the Mississippi Plan. What was the Mississippi Plan? It was take back Mississippi from the Negroes and scalawags and carpetbaggers. Now, the carpetbaggers were those individuals who came typically from the north to make some money off the fact that it was after the Civil War and it was martial law and the returning Confederates couldn't vote. Those were the carpetbaggers that came from the north. Damn Yankees is what some people call them now. Scalawags were those Southerners who did not go off to war. Many of them were rich, by the way. They did not go off to war. Many of them benefited from what was called the 20 nigger rule. By the way, I could use that word. You can. And I'm only doing it because that's what it was called. In other words, those who were wealthy enough to have 20 Negroes on their plantation could pledge their Negroes to the war effort. Now, those Negroes weren't soldiers. They were there as servants. They worked on what was called earthworks. Caucasians then just could not handle that sun and mosquitoes. no matter how red their neck were, they weren't capable of handling that kind of terrain. Still not. But of course now you've got some cool-off points and, you know what I mean, and some machines, heavy lifting. And look, I'm not making this up and I'm not making fun. I'm telling the truth. The Mississippi secession letter said as much. Only those Negroes could bear the kind of sun and the kind of temperatures and the kind of terrain here in Mississippi to be able to do all that for me. And that was by an act of God that they were so strong. So 1875, Ku Klux Klan was alive and well. Now when Nathan Bedford Forrest came out of the Civil War, very shortly thereafter during Reconstruction, the returning Confederates were downtrodden and so forth. And so Nathan Bedford Forrest joined the organization there in Tennessee. And was it Pulaski? Can't think of it. See whether it was Pulaski? I think it starts with a P. So Nathan Bedford Forrest came out, and that's when the Night Riders began. They tried to say, you'll find revisionist white boys in quotes will say, oh yeah, well they're just a social organization, and they will pull up all those they would actually stop all those Caucasian males from being angry to their wives. That's just bull crap. Now they may have done a little bit of that, but what they were designed to do was to stop the scalawags, who were the Southerners who were cooperating during Reconstruction, and to stop the carpetbaggers, and certainly to stop the Negroes. Voila! Klan was born on a mission from God to purge their favorite Mississippi in the South of all those individuals who were not like them. First requirement is white. You got to be that. I mean, you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, when the 14th Amendment passed, giving Negroes the right to vote, let me just tell you, the Klan, Nathan Bedford Forrest, if you go and you look at when he actually started participating, it was right then. Had the right to vote. Oh, no. That means they had the power for their future. So Nathan Bedford Forrest and the Ku Klux Klan became so infamous were they out, let me just tell you, rounding up scalawags, who are white guys, carpetbaggers, and of course Negroes, who were then owning property in and around Mount Bayou. It was so infamous that in some cities, in Virginia and South Carolina, the governor had to declare the Ku Klux Klan as a sedition organization. In other words, there was an overthrow organization.
Trying to take over the government?
Absolutely. They had to outlaw the Klan. I mean, it was literally, they had militias here, folks. I mean, many of them were ex-Confederate soldiers, and they had some vengeance in their hearts, and...
started by 6 ex-Confeds there in Pulaski.
Absolutely, Pulaski. I knew it. See, I know more about their history than they do. I do. His story, and mine too. One thing you've got to know and realize when you're dealing with an enemy, you got to know him better than he knows himself. Then you defeat him. Remember that one. My daddy told me that, by the way. So Nathan Bedford Forrest then, and they got the Night Riders, and this is before the Birth of a Nation movie came out. And so look, there were states, Mississippi included. Actually, there were congressmen who were calling for the president then, Johnson, who succeeded Abraham Lincoln. Look, you got to stop this Klan. They're about to take back over. And Johnson was really trying to, get reelected. He needed, the states were coming back into the Union. He needed them. He needed those Caucasian guys to vote for him. He wasn't a very popular guy. So he was very lackluster, which is why he, ladies and gentlemen, was the first president to go through impeachment proceedings. I don't know whether you knew that. Now you do. You're right. The successor, the vice president of Abe Lincoln, was successor. Impeachment papers were filed against him for obvious reasons. I digress. So, between 1865, what about 1866 to 1875. Actually, before 1875, the Klan was really put down. and declared as being a terrorist organization, stopping short of saying that because it wasn't very popular to say that word during that time. I don't know why. So the Klan was really put down. I mean, the militias, the U.S. colored troops, and others that started in on them, and the rest is history. Then the U.S. colored troops and the Union forces were brought out of the South. Martial law was suspended, and there was no one there to protect the Negroes anymore, or the scalawags, or the carpetbaggers. No one there to suppress the Klan, who were just simply hiding under the surface, keeping their powder dry. So within 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, 1875, they just came back like with a vengeance. All of the forces were gone, and the Ku Klux Klan were hell-bent on stopping what was then cooperative. You see, the poor Caucasian dirt farmer had developed a rapport, especially in Mississippi, with the Negro dirt farmer. It was very interesting. They had formed cooperatives, and there was some sharecropping, and they were really getting along quite well, to the chagrin of the Klan. Which is why, ladies and gentlemen, by the time you got to 1875, the Mississippi Plan was made, and it was to do one most important thing, and that was to disenfranchise everybody who didn't look like them and didn't act like them. They drew that strong divide between the Negro and Caucasians. Bringing out the carpetbaggers, the damn Yankees couldn't take it. And it was by force, folks. There were more hangings between 1875 and 1885 than you could shake. They couldn't even count the number. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was ramshot. And I want you to know the federal government has turned a blind ear. It was like, well, okay. Because we had some other problems. There were other wars breaking out. You had everything from the Spanish-American War, you had the Indian War, you had the westward expansion. We were trying to do the manifest destiny from sea to shining sea. We were a growing country at the time, you ladies and gentlemen. You understand? When American Civil War happened, you didn't have these United States. You didn't have New Mexico and South Dakota and North Dakota. What you had was states being admitted. Texas, California. But there was a lot of states in between, a lot of territory in between that wasn't. So there was some fighting going on. I mean, from excursions and fights with the Spanish, with the French, with the Mexicans, and then the Native Americans. Most of the African Americans who were in the U.S. colored troops were sent out to the so-called Indian Wars. The Apache, the Victorio, So there was a lot going on. And let me just tell you, the Klan just went ramshot over Mississippi. The Mississippi Plan was in full effect. Nothing stopped the Klan. 1875 to 1965. But one thing most in particular, when they finally got the grip and they ran all of the Negroes out of the legislature there in Jackson, when they really took possession of the legislature and every state elected official and the courts, there was something else there. You see, you had some magistrates that were still in the state trying to maintain some semblance of order and true decorum among all people being free. So once all the magistrates were withdrawn or killed in Mississippi, which happened right around the late 1880s and the early 1890s, once all the magistrates were gone, these are federal magistrates, and the legislature was taken over in 1894, that's when they came up with the current banner. The Klan came up with the current banner. Be not misled. I dare any historian to challenge me. Go to Oxford, go to Mississippi State. I know exactly how it happened. If you don't believe that, City Council or Board of Aldermen in Ocean Springs or Gulfport, Biloxi, just pull up Earl Johnson's Mississippi the Infamous Years, or Dr. Hollingsworth, historian emeritus there at Southern University. Don't take my word for it. The Ku Klux Klan came up with that banner to send a signal back to the United States that they had taken over. And that now, those individuals who were supporters of seceding from the Union were back in charge, which is why you have the Confederate banner, which is part in the canton of the current flag. So, Mr. Moore, Ms. Leah Campbell, really and truthfully, it would have done you better to show and prove exactly what I just said. It is, in fact, the symbol. The symbol. And by the way, it was the Mississippi plan that spread throughout the South. I mean, as the Alabama plan was patterned after the Mississippi plan, so was the Georgia plan. By the way, Georgia was the last state to be accepted into the Union. Now that you had a history lesson, and I don't see any challenges, I really wish I could. Maybe you ought to call Beauvoir down there and talk to Mr. Payne and just see if he'd want to take issue with it. I tell him I won't ask him any questions about Jeff Davis' book, to which he looks at as a Bible, because I know he hasn't read it. I don't take any prisoners with this, folks. I really don't. I'm really fed up with the revisionists and the arrogance. Which brings me to Georgia, Griffin, Georgia. The mayor of Griffin, Georgia, that's just south of Atlanta. The mayor, the mayor decided to call April, let's see, what is it? Confederate History Month. Is it like that now in the state of Mississippi? Has the governor done it?
He has not issued that proclamation yet this year.
All right, look at the governor. Huh. I'm sure Sons of Confederate Veterans are going to call them after they hear from me, after they heard me say that. There's there was a little tete-a-tete between the board there in Griffin, Georgia. Are you familiar with this area, Whitlaw?
A little.
Okay. So tell us about it when you say a little.
Meaning it's about 60 miles south of Atlanta. About mixed demographics, blacks and whites.
Oh, okay.
It's a suburban area, though.
So you don't have to get out of there before dark if you're African American.
Maybe. You may.
I want you to know there are places like that in Mississippi. I think Wiggins was like that at one time, wasn't it, Ro?
Well, no, it's not. It was the area between Wiggins proper and going into Harrison County in that McHenry area.
So there was a rather tense exchange just the other day, and I'm going to share it with you. I know we got a lot of stuff to deal with nationally, but this is near and dear. It really is, folks. A former elected official decided to go head up with another elected official when the mayor decided to declare April as Confederate History Month. While speaking about that declaration, this guy, where is he? Larry Johnson, a former member of the board, who is Caucasian, he immediately turned his attention to Rodney McCord. Who is he? Well, Rodney McCord is the African American. He's one of the two African Americans at the table. So I'm going to let you hear this, and hopefully there Shade Dobson, or the mayor there over in Ocean Springs will listen. Because, you see, they received a package. I think it's some white sheets. And I'm going to say this to you. You've got to decide whether or not you are, whether you are one of the good citizens or whether you're with the Klan. Because the person who ever sent you those white sheets understood exactly what that meant. And you understand what that means. There's been no overall condemnation. Especially the best condemnation you can give to the Klan is take down the damn flag. I'm just going to tell you that. Because that is their banner. They originated that banner. And there's ample proof to show it. whether it's been there for the last, Susquecentennial, 100 years, is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. The sheets have been around for 100 years. That doesn't mean that it's a uniform that you wear off to war. So the board there needed to decide what the board here had to decide, and they hadn't. But we'll let you hear this and just hear how this guy, Larry Johnson, talks to one Rodney McCord, the African American there, with his explanations as to how things were and how things are, and how he'd like to be henceforth, and how they'd like to get along. Now just listen to this dialogue, and look, folks. For those of you who are Caucasian listening to this, don't turn it off. You know people who talk just like this, even at the deer camp. And what you need to hear is, what you need to understand is that you can't dictate to someone else what they think or feel about it. I mean, what you eat doesn't make me fat. And if you step on my toe, you're not going to tell me how bad it hurts me. And you're certainly not going to tell me what insults me when you're getting up off the floor. I'm just simply saying. So listen to this. So you got this guy Larry Johnson and Rodney McCord. Obviously had some history there on the board. Johnson's no longer on the board, but he wanted this History Month there in Griffin, Georgia, and he got it. And then he said this.
Good evening.
My name is Larry Johnson, 122 Sherbrooke Way, Griffin, Georgia. I too did not come prepared to speak tonight, but what the heck? Looks like it's a good thing to do. Maybe. Smile. When I get through, we still gonna be friends, if we were friends to start with. Because I'm not gonna change.
Neither am I, sir.
You've already changed, Rodney.
No.
Yeah, you have. You got better, son.
Oh, thank you.
I thought you'd like that.
I do like that. Thank you.
See, I remember, Rodney, serving with the board on you a long time ago. And you talking about saluting the flag or pledging allegiance to the flag. You remember when you would not pledge allegiance to the American flag?
I do recall.
You remember you and I went out into the... When you wouldn't salute the flag, I started wearing my Confederate belt buckle. You remember?
I don't think that's the way it happened, but...
Well, I think so.
There was a time
But
that
you and I went out there, and I was going to say we stood toe-to-toe and head-to-head, but ain't no way we stood head-to-head,
That's true.
son.
All right.
We just stand toe-to-toe.
Okay.
And we talked, and I told you where I came from, and we had an understanding, and you understood me much better after that, and we served together pretty good after
We
that.
did.
I told you at that time that they were white folks, they were black folks when I was growing up.
Okay.
There was white trash, my family, and there was nigger towns. I lived next to nigger town.
You live next to what town?
Nigger town, son, I'm telling you. Now, I've changed. I'm no longer white trash, and they're no longer called that. Now, wait a minute.
Hold on 1 second.
Mr. McCord, let him have 5 minutes,
Now, let me
please.
finish.
Mr. McCord, please.
What did
Now,
he
if that's
just...
offensive, I apologize for being offensive, but I told you that.
Mr. McCord,
Now,
please.
let me just go ahead
I'm
and say
being
something. You
offensive.
said something about the
I
flag.
didn't say you were
My time to
offensive.
speak. You said something about the flag. I gave you, some of you, some stuff last year when I was here, before you go home and study and read. Right now, I don't use that word anymore. But that,
You just used it then.
Now.
Now listen.
Okay.
Mr. McCord, please let him get to the point so we can move on. Mr. McCord,
He
please.
can get to his point, but I'm not going to sit here.
Mr. McCord,
And now maybe y'all are comfortable with that. Now I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and let this man use that type of language. And if nobody else is offended, then I am. Now, if y'all think if y'all want to clap and think that that's okay for this gentleman to stand in 2018 and get here at the Board of City Commission meeting, 2018, the Civil War is over, and he is using the N-word, not once, not twice, 3 times, and he just continues to say it
Mr.
with
McCord.
not word about who it offends.
Griffin, Georgia. So what should he have done, bro? What would you have done?
If I were the board member,
Yeah?
At the risk of losing that post, I might have had to come across that board.
Why?
Well, that's a fighting word.
Yeah.
And he knows it is. And that's why he used it. Maybe that was a baiting tactic.
Well, he did say that's what he used to use, and now he doesn't use it anymore.
But he used it
came
again
along
right after that. Yeah. You know, so, I mean, maybe that was a tactic to try to get that brother to put hands on him. But, you know, if he would have used that tactic on me, it may have worked.
What about you, Whitlow?
I probably would have been very offended, and I don't know what I might have done, because I do believe he did it to be disrespectful. So me not expecting that type of disrespect, you know, over and over again, I'm not sure I would have been able to contain myself either. But at the same time, I would have gotten him out of there. I would have gotten him removed immediately.
So let me ask you this: so do you think that the president was in error by letting the Larry Johnson continue that dissertation?
Yes, I think once he used it the first time, he should have been, you know, stopped, and he should have been asked to leave.
And when you hear, you know, whoever was presiding try to silence the African American member who he was addressing and let him continue, that's further disrespect. So, you know, the brother handled himself, you know, splendidly in maintaining himself, but I'm not sure I would have been able to do that.
What about the other brother in the room? Didn't hear from him.
Well, it says all it needs to say is silence, doesn't it?
Well,
I mean, maybe he was taken aback and stupefied by the fact that language was being used, but his silence speaks volumes.
Well, he was asked not to refrain from using that word, and then Johnson continued by saying this: "My skin is white, my neck is red, and I was born in Southern Bed."
Is that a poem?
That's a rap.
A redneck.
It's a rap.
That's a rap, yeah.
Redneck rap.
Say it again.
My skin is white, my red neck is red. I guess they don't rhyme, do
No,
it's not. No.
and I was born in a Southern bed.
Nothing wrong with that. And so, you know, folks, you know, when you look through this, and you think about every little town, including Ocean Springs now, it just makes you just kind of go, you know, I think I ought to go home and clean my guns.
Buy some more.
All right. Yeah, I know. It continues. I thought that sheet thing, sending the sheets to the Aldermen, was pretty good.
I thought that was fantastic. What I did not appreciate, though, was local media coverage of it. And I have to take my peers to task because it was seemingly an attempt to silence the person who sent those sheets. She sent a message with the sheets. So, I mean, I'm not sure why it wasn't.
How did they get the message? How did media get wind of this? Would be the question.
How did media do what now?
How did media get wind of this? How did the news agency?
Well, the Mississippi Press picked it up. Someone from the board or the mayor's office had to have told someone, because the Mississippi Press was the first one to report this there locally in Ocean Springs. So someone in the office, because there was no one on the board according to them, certainly not the mayor. So someone there had to have, one of the 7 aldermen or someone in their offices had to have alerted media, because no one is really saying how this actually came out. But the person who sent it, who identified herself as Sarah Halstead, sent a message that I have not heard local media relay. Last night on the local news here, you heard nothing of this message, only that there was a message that alluded to the Klan. All right? This is the message in full. Quote, "Hi, Alderman. I wasn't sure of your size, so just consider this a do-it-yourself kit. Your other option, of course, being to grow a spine, publicly denounce the Klan, and take down the flag. From Sarah Halstead." End quote.
All right, Sarah. Any response from the Aldermen? I think I heard one or two.
Yeah. They, of course, Mayor Shea Dawson tried to reduce this into a political discussion, which it certainly is not.
Did they return the sheets?
What was that?
Did they return the sheets?
No, the mayor said that he would be donating the sheets there to a local charity.
Mazzati.
Pretty nice sheet. So, someone will get some nice fresh sheets since apparently he has plenty.
You think he'll donate them to the NAACP?
Doubtful.
You think the NAACP would have received them if he did?
Doubtful. Well, I don't know.
Why don't you call Curly? You see what this does? You see what it fuels? There are going to be those who are going to blame the coalition. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the humbug, and has always been the humbug of the Klan. And every day, everywhere you see this, you're doing the bidding of the Klan. Going back to 1894. Same old crap. And it won't get better. You cannot have a battle flag as a welcome mat and call yourself the hospitality state. It's just dumb. The rest of the world knows it. Everybody knows it. The one single most recognizable symbol of a divided country is the Confederate flag anywhere, anyhow. It's hostile. It's a battle flag, for God's sake. I know what I'm ready to do. I mean, you're going to get on guard. It's a battle regalia. I don't care if you put the little 3 bars on it. It stands for then what it stands for now. Oh, here's Shea Dobson. He says this. This is his little resolution. The KKK is a bunch of racist, coward terrorists. Their actions should be rebuked by everyone, regardless of party affiliation or political beliefs. This Gulf Coast community is made up of the most compassionate and loving people there is, regardless what others may say. Really? Well, you're not saying it. I don't see a whole lot in your local newspaper about it. I don't see all of the aldermen coming out and saying as much. I see you're saying it. Why don't you call the Dixie, Buzzard Roos, whatever his name was, and why don't you send it to him? Why don't you pass a resolution that begs the pardon of Mr. Stewart's niece, Mr. Stewart, who was hung by the wonderful community of Ocean Springs back, 1921? I mean, come on. There's some things you can do. Denounce it. I denounce it. They're a bunch of racist, coward terrorists. Okay, well, you got all that right, but why would you fly their banner then?
And why would you put it up on your first day in office when it hadn't been up?
Because you're scared, Mayor. Every one of you are scared. That's why. And that's why the Klan has persisted in Mississippi and has maintained Caucasian silence. And your silence has been consent. Long as you don't go past, what did he call that? Niggertown. Long as they go to Niggertown, I'm all right. That means across the track. That means the quarters in some places. You're scared. That's what you are. Oh, you see, you forced me to have to come out and say something now. Ned, why did you do that? Can you guys just be quiet and just deal with that coalition at nighttime when we don't have to worry with it. We'll be back.
The Jackson Advocate newspaper has been the voice of black Mississippians since 1938. The Jackson Advocate wants to come into your home each week and keep you informed of local